Hello and welcome to TV International. I'm Patti de Bonitas.
And I'm Faribosh Puya. We'll have TV International is a weekly program that analyzes news and comments about Iran and Middle East from a left and progressive point of view. What do we have today, Patti?
Today we will have the 8th of March, a report on 8th of March inside and outside of Iran. We will have, unfortunately, we have a call for a very urgent campaign of an Iranian activist in Japan. We will talk about the seminar against or the legal measures that are possible against Sharia law in Britain. That has just happened, the seminar.
And I really, Mike, would like to make a comment about George Galloway and the incident in the House of Commons when he was speaking, and actually talk about the sort of nationalist pro or anti-imperialist nationalist movement and what international solidarity really means and what people need to say. Okay. So let's just start with 8th of March.
8th of March.
What's the news?
Well, the news was, I think, it was a very successful 8th of March. It went all across the world. Women in Iran, women and men came out onto the street in several cities in Iran.
Right.
In some universities as well, they had a very spontaneous gathering in some places.
I think one of the things we need to pay attention to, that the whole militarized situation in Iran following the December 6th of December demonstration, a huge demonstration on Ashura and religious day, and government is trying to militarize the whole of society. Effectively, this martial law, they're prepared for this. We know that thousands of people have been rounded up, activists been rounded up, and that has an impact. And I think there's a clear fear of that. Despite that, there has been protests on 8th of March, mainly abroad, but in Iran, we know in Sanandaj, for example, the western city in Sanandaj, people came out on the streets with banners celebrating March the 8th, International Women's Day, and they read a declaration in support of equality of men and women. They demanded the freedom of political prisoners and actually declared men and women are equal, and they asked for end to the Islamic laws, regulation and overthrow of the Islamic regime. So I think that was an extremely brave move by men and women of Sanandaj, and that was, I think, quite significant. And that's the sort of things that we've seen in many parts, and people have actually celebrated, and I think that's very important. And people have actually asked what we see on the screen of TV, that people have declared that they do not want the Islamic regime, that the men and women are equal. That's very, very significant. And as you said earlier, there was a spontaneous demonstrations, and abroad we've had sort of a lot of demonstrations organised by WPI and opposition groups abroad.
We had quite a few, I think, in over 15 different cities in North America, the US, in Dallas and Washington. In Washington they had a picnic, I think, that was, I think, is quite wonderful. No, in Dallas they had a picnic. In Washington they went to the Pakistan embassy, because that's where the Islamic Republic's embassy is, so they had demonstration there. In London, in the United Kingdom, of course, I had demonstration in Norway, in Sweden, in many demonstrations across the world. And I think this year the theme was sort of no to hijab.
Okay.
Some women were taking off their hijab. There were women burning their hijab. There were also some symbolic acts of people in London. There were symbolic acts of people taking off their hijab, and I think now we're going to see a clip from a woman in, she gave a speech in Toronto at the 8th of March gathering.
Hopefully. Yes, as you said, Patty, as you said, the main theme has been sort of against hijab and compulsory Islamic veiling, and that's shown itself in different parts. And I know that in Sweden, on 8th of March, thousands of people were in the main square, and people burned hijab. In Trafalgar Square in London, people thrown hijab and walked on it, and passers-by came and trampled on hijab. We know that in Canada it's happened. So this is picking up everywhere. And in other parts of the world where there's been mass demonstration, normal 8th of March, the situation of women in Iran has been sort of at the top of the agenda, and that's the key, because women's movement in Iran currently are leading the struggle for liberation of women everywhere, and I think it deserves solidarity, it deserves support, and while everywhere Islamic movement is trying to undermine the rights of women, in Iran, actually, there is a mass movement against the Islamic regime, and women at the head of and helm of this movement, and so it's important that that's celebrated and supported, and I think that's quite important.
We also had in Turkey, actually, already before 8th of March, there was a group of women who actually took off the hijab as well, and they were from something equivalent to like a socialist party, I think, social democratic party, and the party actually condemned it.
Okay, actually the women who actually did that.
Yeah, and they were from the party, and the party officially condemned it. Right. So I think
for the party, women's act is more important. Can we just now go on another issue, which is the issue of solidarity, is really urgent action. Jamal Saberi, an Iranian activist, happened to be a member of the Worker Communist Party of Iran, and also a long-term opponent of the Islamic regime, who's been in Japan for many years.
20.
And over 20 years. I think he's married to a Japanese lady as well, if that's important. Anyhow, he's been one of the main organizers of opposition in Japan to the Islamic Republic, and he's a well-known activist and figurehead of the Iranian opposition. He has been, on the 4th of March, I understand, he's been arrested by the Japanese Immigration Authority, and he's been detained. And this is extremely worrying, because we understand that they intend to deport Jamal Saberi.
Yes.
And we've launched a campaign for his immediate release, and we're asking everyone to write to the Japanese embassy in your country and ask for Jamal Saberi to be released immediately and granted leave to remain and refugee status. He's been in Japan for 20 years. He's been activist. He was, I think, a few years ago arrested for a while, and there was a huge campaign in Japan and internationally, which ended in his release. Any more news about this campaign, Patty?
Yes, it's actually run by the International Federation of Iranian Refugees, who have also worked the last time on the campaign. And what we, because I'm part of that campaign, what we are doing is we have set up the blog, we have set up a Facebook and a Twitter, and we're asking everybody to please come. We will show all the details at the end of the program, at the very end. Please do come and write to your embassy, to your embassy in the country where you live, the Japanese embassy, or you can write directly to the Japanese authorities in Japan, because it is very important. We have spoken to Jamal today, and he is in there with 800 other
So actually,
people.
you've spoken to
Jamal?
Jamal?
Yeah, we've spoken to him. A colleague of ours has spoken to him today.
Right. Okay.
He's in there with 800 other
refugees.
Jamal has a heart condition. He describes the conditions in the detention center as very harsh. He said in the last week alone, 2 people have committed suicide. So we do urge you, please help Jamal, and we will be back after the break.
Yes. Thank you.